here on Get Up. Hard to believe. It's been 16 years since LeBron James made the decision, the one that saw him take his talents to South Beach, where he won his first 2 NBA titles. And all these years later, LeBron, once again, navigating his NBA future as he prepares for season number 24, during which he will turn 42 years old. Let's zoom out before getting to this decision. So how did that decision 16 years ago transform LeBron James's career as we know it? Wendy, you were at the epicenter of covering that. What do you remember about the decision? And then all these years later, are you surprised we're doing it again?
Yes, I'm surprised we're doing it again. I think that's fair to say that. And the decision itself, I think there was such heat off the moment and the way it was presented. I think it just obscured 2 legacies of it. Number one, that it changed the way athletes took control of announcing their news. Today, we see college-bound athletes routinely do their own decisions, and we don't think twice about it. LeBron's decision to do that completely changed the way they viewed that. Secondly, the decision raised between $2 and $3 million for boys and girls clubs across the country. To this day, those boys and girls clubs benefit from the money that was raised there. It was just never presented appropriately. They should have, in retrospect, come out and showed the check right out of the gate instead of having the lead-up questions and then the very silent answer, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. There are boys and girls clubs that are using gyms and rooms and refurbished areas to this day that were funded by that night, but nobody ever remembers that.
Yeah, so now we're waiting on the next decision, whenever that comes, Vince, for LeBron James. What do you think is driving his decision circa 2026?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have no idea what's driving this decision for LeBron James. When you look at where he was in L.A. this most recent period, they were knocked out in the second round of the playoffs. He was arguably their 3rd best player behind Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. Maybe you can quibble on him being a more effective player than Austin Reeves. I'm not going to argue on that. But he's won all the championships he's probably going to win. He's won all the MVPs he's probably going to win. He's in year 24. This is also unprecedented. So to pretend like out of the 10 teams that he's allegedly considering, that we know what his priorities are beyond quote-unquote happiness and maybe playing a little bit of golf, that would be lying for us to say that. His decision is going to reflect what he considers to be most important. But as of right now, we don't know it. Only he and Rich Paul know it. And I feel like I guarantee you that they know it. They're just not telling us right now.
Yeah, we saw it on the whiteboard on the Rich Paul and Max Kellerman podcast. They laid out at least the teams we believe to be in the mix, one of them being Cleveland, Wendy. And we know that Donovan Mitchell signed the extension this week. How do you think that factors in potentially to LeBron going back home and finishing his career with the Cavs?
I don't think it factors in really at all. Donovan was going to be on the Cavs this year no matter what. LeBron is making a year-to-year decision. The investment in Donovan Mitchell is a 5-year investment for the Cavs. They want him to be their cornerstone and franchise centerpiece going forward, no matter whether LeBron wants to get there or not. And by the way, that would be the case in any of these teams LeBron is considering. He's not considering any of these teams where he would go in and be the centerpiece player. That's why he's only going to make a minimum contract or an exception. If he went to Golden State, Steph is on the verge of getting an extension. Giannis Antetokounmpo is trying to get an extension. Obviously, in Philadelphia, there's 2 or 3 players you could consider franchise players. All of these places, LeBron is coming in as a supporting piece. Donovan Mitchell, that situation with his contract would have been that way no matter what.
And Vince, you still remain pretty steadfast that Miami might be the best destination?
My thought is that Miami could. Let me be perfectly clear with everyone. This is not me reporting. This is not me doing anything. This is Vinny saying Miami would bookend this LeBron journey, not just for the fact of historically where he's been with that organization, with Eric Spoelstra, with Pat Riley, but practically on the floor. You don't want LeBron to be in this position where he has to do all the heavy lifting. That's Giannis, that's Bam. He can still be a perimeter option. He's become a better spot-up shooter. I think that could be the better basketball option.
Okay, so while we wait on the next decision for LeBron James, which who knows when it's going to come. The offseason is a long, long time to wait on the way. But we start with our lead story. And stop me, guys, if you have heard this before. We are waiting on yet another LeBron James decision. The basketball world waits with bated breath to learn where he will play in year 24. And Philly remains a pretty intriguing destination. Sixers president Bob Myers was asked about what his pitch to LeBron would be. Here is what he said.
If he was here, I'd say I honestly believe this is your best chance to win. You have to decide all the other things that are equally important. What I would just say is, if it's about winning, and that, let's talk about this team, because you can win here in Philadelphia.
Okay, so that is about as direct of a pitch, guys, as you are going to get. Bob Myers, who runs the Philadelphia 76ers organization, Vinny, giving that pitch to Max Kellerman, Rich Paul, LeBron's agent. So what do you hear, Windy, when you hear Bob Myers, his words, the recruiting style? What is that telling you about Philly's process in trying to get LeBron?
Well, it's more about the entire LeBron process than anything, because this is how the 76ers are getting to talk to LeBron. That was on Rich Paul and Max Kellerman's podcast, but it was essentially a meeting with LeBron James. That's how you talk to LeBron in 2026. In 2010, he had 3 days of meetings where everybody came to an office building in Cleveland in $10,000 suits, and Jay-Z came to pitch him. In 2014, Dan Gilbert his jet was being tracked as he tried for a clandestine meeting in South Florida. In 2018, Magic Johnson stood on his driveway until free agency opened and then walked into his house in Los Angeles to make the pitch. Now you come on a podcast, and this is where we go as LeBron plays golf and works on his short game. So this is a demonstration of how the game has changed and how long the LeBron career and free agency processes have been.
Yeah, I'm amazed that he's still at the epicenter of free agency all these years later. You just referenced the decision, which was all these years ago, the anniversary being yesterday, July 8th. Are you amazed when you think about this process that he's still at the epicenter of free agency and dictating his own terms?
Yeah, and I think it's for a completely different reason. 16 years ago, the New York Knicks spent 2 seasons getting themselves into position where they could pitch LeBron James. He dismissed their pitch in a matter of minutes. And then now, because he's willing to play for essentially next to the league minimum, any team has the option to go get him. So it's a completely different situation. Back then, there were just really a couple of teams he was considering. Now he could consider 10 teams, as Rich Paul outlined on another recent podcast interview. I don't think he's actually considering 10 teams, but the idea is that somebody could get a player like LeBron's caliber for next to nothing in NBA dollars. And so while it is a repeating of LeBron being pitched, in some ways, it's extraordinarily different and very unique.
Yeah, Vince, I want to bring you in here. When you hear Bob Myers in the words, the process that he's trying to use here, what stands out the most?
Just the fact that we're doing this on reality TV. Like, this is the most reality TV. This is the most 2026 thing of all time. The fact that we're not having clandestine meetings and high rises in Cleveland or Miami or LA or wherever. You're having on a podcast with Rich Paul and Max Kellerman. Like, that is where we are in terms of the basketball culture. But when I hear Bob Myers talk, it's almost like he knows that he doesn't have the best hand here. He doesn't know who has the best hand, but he knows that he doesn't have the best hand. And the most important thing is this. We all have to be honest, and Wendy is like the prince of pessimism when it comes to these things. We don't know what LeBron wants. Like, normally it's a max contract and then another max slot to bring one of LeBron's teammates along. But right now, LeBron is at the stage of his career and his life where money is not the most important thing. We don't know what matters most to him at this stage, if it's winning, if it's comfort, whatever it is. And we're going to find out what that is based off of his decision. And the most important thing Wendy said is, you're talking about a veteran minimum player, so to speak, who can command a lot more. Are you going to ask him to do max salary contract things on a minimum deal?
Yeah, it's a good point. Wendy, let's drill down here on Philly. What makes that the most attractive destination for him and the most attractive selling point from Bob Myers?
I'm not going to make that case because I don't necessarily know if it is the most attractive, because you're making a basketball case, and what LeBron has said is it's a happiness case. Can he be happy living in Philly? But I will say a big factor here is Tyrese Maxey. I know that so much of the focus is on Jaylen Brown because that's how Philly got into this conversation. They traded for Jaylen Brown last week. But the reason I think he's seriously looking at Philadelphia is because of Tyrese Maxey, and that connection is with Clutch Sports, his agency that he is, basically a founder of alongside Rich Paul. It's the Tyrese Maxey connection that draws him in. It's that was the same thing with Anthony Davis that got Anthony Davis to the Lakers, and the reason that LeBron would have interest in playing with Anthony Davis if he were traded to the Golden State Warriors in the coming days. And this is not just a Clutch Sports thing. All of the top level agencies will have their clients work together. But this is a Tyrese Maxey thing. You would really want Tyrese Maxey sitting next to Bob Myers making the pitch, and I'm sure he has.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part here, because I think once the Jaylen Brown trade happened, we all thought that might have been the biggest selling point. But we can start connecting some dots here via agency and seeing what might be the best fit for LeBron James. Maybe it's in Philly. Maybe he will help them win their first world championship since 1983. Okay, more on this in a bit, because the World Cup has